see nothing but betrayals by the petty bourgeois elements in our society. The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering.
For what is what, I ain't trying to round my luck this game up. I ain't trying to show skills to the brothers played up. Emotions got me feeling like one time, like a fade up. I wanna talk all that money, but I ain't got my weight up. Now I see life like trading knuckles, see the feast like the insight that I acquire from the skills and eyesight. The street life you glorify is a mean life. The weak, strong, wicked, everybody living still dies. Back in the days I used to master these rap shit, rapping fantastic. Flick words like vocal gymnastics. Started with some slow words like nigga is spastic. I melt mics with these words like fire to plastic. I really miss them days. We used to throw dice, barefooted, now we making dough, we're buying 2 nights. Taking misses on the cruise, dinner in the moonlight. We having dinner stuck in black, he's still like 2 shots.
But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way.
And you, I'm sleeping, I'm falling, I'm reaching out to higher powers.
What's good, African family? Welcome back to the African Wahala. We're going to be examining a very trending topic about the USAID and its effects in Africa, focusing on Nigeria. If we look at the history of the USAID with Nigeria, the relationship that exists, it says here, according to the USAID website, and you really have to be careful what you believe from these types of information. The USAID has a long and proud history of assistance to Nigeria that dates back to 1960. So we're talking about 65 years. The year that Nigeria became the 26th African nation to gain independence. At that time, the US government awarded grants to 4 major US state universities, Michigan, Wisconsin, Kansas, and Colorado State, to build colleges of agriculture in 4 Nigerian universities: University of Ibadan, University of Nigeria-Nsukka, Ahmadu Bello University-Zaria, and University of Ife. From 1994 to 1999, the USAID program in Nigeria was reduced due to political sanctions imposed due to an increase in drug trafficking. During that time, the USAID program was relatively small, about $7 million a year, and implemented entirely by NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Now, there are some videos currently trending as a result of Donald Trump and the investigation into the USAID program, the way the funds have been spent all over the world. And people are talking. First things first, we have a guy, I'm not even sure what he is, to be honest. He might be a congressman, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? He comes on video explaining how the USAID has become a tool to be used to fund insurgency.
Get some of that money. Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan.
Now, we've digressed a little bit, and shout out to my sister, Garba Life. Thanks for joining us. According to this guy, Scott Perry, okay, he's a representative, I guess a rep in the House, some sort of high politician in America, responsible for the investigation of the USAID and how the funds have been expended around the world. He specifically mentioned Boko Haram.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram.
ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram. Now, for a lot of us, we already know how the United States has operated in Nigeria through its, not just in Nigeria, in Africa, through its appendages, institutions like the CIA. We remember what happened to Patrice Lumumba in 1961, or was it 1963, thereabouts, where the CIA was directly responsible for having this guy murdered. This guy was like a standing icon in the Congo, trying to fight off imperialism from the Belgian Empire. But the US sided with the Belgians to make sure that Patrice Lumumba couldn't create a Congo that was independent of colonialism. Now, we're going to be showing you a timeline of events that happened between 2009, when Boko Haram started in Nigeria, and 2025, where we are today. We also need to keep in mind that between these 25 years, about 25, 26 years thereabout, or maybe I'm wrong, from 2009 to 2025, no, that's about 17 years. So within these roughly 17 years, Nigeria dropped down from the largest economy in Africa to the third largest economy in Africa. Nigeria also dropped down from one of the safer countries in Africa to the most terrorized country in Africa. I'm talking about people in Nigeria suffer the highest casualty as far as terrorism is concerned. And these numbers are kept by several global institutes. The most common one is the Global Terrorism Index, kept by, can't remember the name of the institute, out of Australia. They track the data of people that suffer from terrorism all over the world. And for 7 consecutive years, from 2016 to 2023, they ranked Nigeria as the #1 country as far as victims of terrorism. Then we're going to talk about some economic impacts. Nigeria, like I said, largest economy, largest GDP in Africa as at 2009, became the third largest economy. Now, you can attribute that economic size to the size of the population. We don't know the actual population of Nigeria, but from a rough estimate, people say Nigeria's population is easily 200 million people. Now, it's a guess, it's a rough estimate, because no credible population census has taken place since 1992. Now, shout out to this guy, David Hundain, investigative journalist, very good at what he does. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but I respect his work. He has brought to light a lot of things, exposing how there is so much interference from different part of the world to Africa, especially Nigeria, and how such interference keeps Nigeria at the bottom of the food chain as a stagnant society, as a society caught up in an infinite loop, going round and round and round in circles without accomplishing anything. So David Hundain put out this timeline of events between 2009 and 2023. And you can easily see how the US aid contributed to the mess, the absolute mess that Nigeria is today. And that's what we're going to be delving into in this broadcast. Okay. We're going to go back to 2009 and how Boko Haram originated. There was a guy named Mohammed Yusuf. Mohammed Yusuf was pretty much the founder of Boko Haram, and he was captured by the Nigerian military and killed in the public because the judiciary system really sucks, and it's almost impossible to do things the right way as far as judiciary, right? So Mohammed was killed, and once the guy lost his life, sorry about the small size of the photo, his followers, mostly made up of poor people that have nothing going on for them, and it's not really their fault. It's as a result of mismanagement of the society. I'm talking about millions of poor people that have nothing going on, no education, no employable skills. People that all they have in their lives is religious indoctrination. Oh, yes, you deserve to be poor. And if you find yourself poor, it's okay. God made you poor. You should accept how God created you to be poor. And it's your job as a poor person to beg for alms. Okay. And it's the job of the rich people in the society to provide alms for you because that's what God wants. That's the type of religious indoctrination that is preached in that part of Nigeria. So for that reason, once Mohammed was judicially killed by the police, absolutely illegal, his followers went on a rampage. They went on a riot, a bunch of violent activities. And then by 2009 November, because Mohammed was killed in 2009 July. By November of the same year, the United States government sent a request to the Nigerian government to establish a military base. Back then, Omar Yaradua was the president of Nigeria. He rejected the offer or the request by the United States of America. Why did Yaradua reject the request? Because he wasn't really sure of, the intentions of the US. And it's commendable. Now, that doesn't mean that me personally, I like Yaradua or I see him as a hero. As far as I'm concerned, all these guys contributed, every last one of the former leaders of Nigeria, they contributed to the demise of Nigeria. So with Umar Yaradua rejecting the offer from the United States to establish a military base in Nigeria, yes, it's commendable to an extent, but at the same time, you still have to consider some things that Yaradua's government did to contribute to the mess that we are in today. All right. Now, magically, 6 months later, Yaradua was announced dead. That was in May 2010. He died under mysterious circumstances. Many people came out saying, oh, Yaradua had passed away a long time ago. He was already dead as at March, April, May. All types of rumors came to the surface about Omar Yaradua. They said he died and the information was kept from Nigeria. Now, this has nothing to do with the USAID situation. It has everything to do with the corruption in Nigeria, because there is so much corruption in the Nigerian government. They would rather hide such information about the demise of their leader from the people for their selfish gains, as opposed to announcing it to the people, just for selfish gains. And what are these selfish gains? Material things, the ability to have access to money, to steal money so they can buy houses, cars, in a country where the vast majority of the people are living in extreme poverty. But I digress, because the topic of the conversation is about the USAID, right? Right after Yaradua passed away, perished, unfortunately, in May 2009, there was a situation a couple of months later in August 2011. Remember, we started this conversation with Boko Haram and how they came into existence when their first founder, Mohammed Yusuf, was extrajudicially killed by the Nigerian police in broad daylight. Fast forward 2 years later, we have the same small organization having suicide bombers going to United Nations building in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. They actually succeeded in executing a mission, a terror attack on the United Nations building. 37 people lost their lives, if I'm correct, or rather 18 people lost their lives in the suicide attack. And that brought Boko Haram to the public view of the world. Everybody started talking about Boko Haram from that point. Like, how did that happen?
The twisted metal, shattered glass, and huge hole show the strength of the blast. Witnesses say a car packed with explosives ran through two separate gates, exploding just outside the building's main reception. Damage to the concrete structure is extensive. The number of casualties is high. Ambulances have been bringing victims to nearby hospitals.
The building is not safe.
The UN compound houses about 400 employees and the bulk of its offices in Nigeria.
These buildings house 26 humanitarian and development agencies of the United Nations family. This was an assault on those who devote their lives to helping others.
No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. Nigerian police say they're investigating to see if the Islamist group Boko Haram might be behind the bombing. The group wants Islamic Sharia law implemented in the country and has recently launched several attacks. But past violence has centered on Nigerian symbols of authority, not international organizations like the UN, which makes this attack so much more worrying for so many people. Yvonne Dege, Al Jazeera, Abuja, Nigeria.
Now, I'll tell you guys a quick story. When that bomb blast occurred, I was in Abuja. I was literally spreading my clothes. I had done laundry, and I remember I was spreading my clothes on the line outside. Sunny, nice, dry atmosphere. And then I heard a couple of bomb blasts. Well, I didn't know they were bomb blasts at that point, until a few hours later, we turned on the news and we realized that the United Nations building had been attacked. 18 innocent people lost their lives. Unfortunate incident. The question is, how did an illiterate, disorganized people that are extremists, not really their fault, they were indoctrinated to be what they were? They became radical because their leader was killed. Remember, these are disorganized people, poor, illiterate. How did they organize themselves within 2 years? Rather, was it 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. And became successful suicide bombers in a well-secured building, international building, United Nations building. If you connect the dots, all right, which we are going to do in this video, you will see how the original clip that I played in the beginning, by that rep guy from the US talking about how the USAID has contributed to financing Boko Haram, then the story begins to make sense. Because there is no way a ragtag, poverty-stricken, illiterate organization will successfully execute such an attack. It's just impossible. You require some sort of money, some organization, some funding for that to happen. So if you connect the dots, we'll see what happens. So that was the situation as at 2011 August, when Boko Haram attacked the UN building in Abuja. And then people started wondering, but how come, what exactly is going on? You know, it became very, very surprising. By December of the same year, 2011, there were multiple coordinated attacks across multiple cities, including Abuja, Jos, Gadaka, Damaturu. Dozens and dozens of people were killed. There was a Christmas Day bomb blast in Abuja. I was also in Abuja when that happened. And then 37 people, unfortunately, lost their lives. This was during the prime of Boko Haram. And a fringe ragtag organization doesn't just explode within a couple of years. So much so that they have the capacity to attack the United Nations building. Then they have the capacity to simultaneously attack multiple locations at the same time, including on Christmas Day. And people are wondering, how is such an organization so sophisticated that they could carry out such attacks? And it boils down to the speculations. You see, if you don't provide quality information for people, then you leave room for speculations. And right now, with the United States representative member coming out and blatantly accusing the USAID of being one of the funders of Boko Haram, then it makes sense why such an organization can carry out these attacks.
I was close to the window when I just heard a very heavy sound that sent me running back to the bed, and the window glasses of my hotel broke up. And then I settled down there for about a minute before I realized what is happening. And then I came out to see that there was a bomb blast at the Catholic church just adjacent to the hotel called the Flu, where I lodged in. And then there were some 2 buses burning directly opposite the church. So we just have to rush and move from the place. Then suddenly, about 30 minutes again, as I was about to leave the town, another blast occurred just across after about a kilometer away, another church.
So there were multiple bomb blasts in December of 2011 carried out by Boko Haram, and it makes sense right now why Boko Haram had such capacity. Remember, Boko Haram was originally made up of poor people that are uneducated, that are religiously indoctrinated to be extremists. Okay. So technically, it's not entirely their fault why they became the monsters that they became. But if such people could become extremely known and feared by a huge country with one of the strongest military capacity in the continent of Africa as of 2009, 2010, then something was amiss. And that's where the USAID comes into play. How come the USAID is able to fund these people without any repercussions? And shout out to my sister Garba Life. Thank you so much for the promotion. I appreciate you, good sister. You know, we have to do what we can to put out this information for those that don't know, and we'll see where it goes. Right now, we are in the age of information. Everybody has access to information from their social media, from their phones, their telephones. It's not that difficult to access information and put the pieces together to come up with a whole picture, right? Now, Boko Haram, once again, they strike. They have flags that they carry around. This time around, they've become so emboldened. We are in 2012, and we see Boko Haram straight up harassing anyone. By 2013, Boko Haram goes in the space of 1 year from being a scattergun insurgency burning churches to being a full-on military campaign that kills both Christians, Muslims, and anybody in their path. They actually hold territories within Nigeria and they put their flags in those territories, telling the people that, hey, this is our Boko Haram territory. The Nigerian government, you better not come through to this location. If you come through, you're going to perish. And the people, the unfortunate people in this locality, they have to bend to our will. And that includes they have to start paying taxes to us. The farmers that are going into the farms to cultivate crops, to feed the people, sell some, make money for themselves and contribute to the food basket of the country. Now you can no longer do that until you pay us some money. And if you don't, you're going to be beheaded. A straight up, absolutely savage terror group, Boko Haram. But like I said, if Boko Haram's humble beginnings was from poor people that were uneducated as a result of extremely corrupt politicians in their locality, and all of a sudden they are having machine guns, tankers, they are attacking United Nations buildings, attacking churches, suicide bombers. Now they have armor carrying vehicles, they have flags, and they have territories in a country. Do you think that is possible without some major funding from some major people? So when the rep member Perry Scott, or is that what the guy is called? When that dude, Scott Perry, came out and said, the USAID is responsible for funding terror groups like ISIS, Al Qaeda, and Boko Haram. It makes sense now to us. It absolutely makes sense because there is no way poor people in such conditions could pull off the evil that Boko Haram pulled off. And why? Listen to this analogy quickly. If a country and its politicians are serious about their country and about their lives. Why would they sit down and be begging for aid from another country for 60 years? Well, as of back then, it was like 55, 50 years. Why would you be begging for aid for 55 years if you're a serious person, someone with integrity, someone that deserves some respect? You don't deserve any respect if that's what you do. If you go around with your palms open, with your, what's it called now? You know those pans. If you're going around panhandling, asking the United States, "Oh, please, can you give us some aid? We need some aid. The United States Agency for International Development, send us some money." If you keep on doing that for 55 years, you're not going to be respected. And that's why we got to where we are. Now, fast forward, according to the timeline, shout out to my sister Garba Life. I appreciate you so much, sis. Hey, sis, when I'm done with this conversation, if you're interested, you want to have a conversation, I can drop the link in the chat and we can have a quick, maybe 5-minute conversation. It's all good. But I'll try to round this up quickly. Now, we are back on the timeline. 2014, May. We have 200 plus girls kidnapped from a school in Chibok. Chibok is situated in the northeastern region of Nigeria. This was what brought Boko Haram to the international limelight. This was when the entire world knew about Boko Haram and became very interested in what was going on in Nigeria. Remember, they already began their operations in 2009. So this was 5 years later. They had bombed the UN building, bombed churches, killed a bunch of people. Very, very unfortunate. But as of 2014, they did the most. They went to a secondary school where you have kids from like 10 to like 16, 17. They kidnapped 200 girls and took them into the bushes. If that is not enough evidence that as at 2014, Nigeria was already a completely failed situation, then I don't know what is. But at the same time, we can point to the USAID funding that made it possible for Boko Haram to grab 200 girls in trucks, because for you to pull that move, you would need some sort of large vehicle, multiple vehicles. So these guys are driving around in convoys in the middle of the night, going to kidnap poor children from a school, and you think they aren't funded by some powerful organization? That's where the USAID comes into play. The USAID, in my opinion, because they've refused to give us the proper information, they've created an avenue for speculations. So in my speculation, the USAID funding contributed to the kidnapping of 200 girls in Chibok. That's my speculation. While that was going on, you remember Nigeria had the president, Goodluck Jonathan. In my opinion, an absolute clown. Now, we might differ in opinions, that's fine. I told you earlier, the same way I have no love for Umar Yar'Adua is the same way I have no love for Goodluck Jonathan. They're all clowns as far as I'm concerned. They all contributed to the mess that Nigeria is. And if for 55 years a country continues to exist without finding an alternative source of income aside panhandling, then it's your fault. The leaders are corrupt and useless, and it's their fault that they were panhandling for 55 years, including Goodluck Jonathan. However, two things can be wrong at the same time. Yes, Goodluck Jonathan might have been incompetent, might have been clueless, might have not have a clue what he was doing. He just wanted to become the president of a country for no reason. Yes, that is very, very possible, right? But at the same time, you're not going to pretend like there wasn't some external sabotaging moves going on in the background. You're not going to pretend. Like we've connected the dots as far as Boko Haram and their capacities as at 2014. It's illogical. It's not possible for such a ragtag organization to have the capacity to pull off those moves. They needed some external funding. And that's why when the United States rep, whatever the guy is called, rep member, shout out to my sister, Biblical Beauty Prayer Life. Thank you so much for coming through. I actually have a question. If you can help me here in the comment section, sister. Let me show you something.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training.
So this guy, Rep Perry Scott, that's what the guy's name is. My question to you, Biblical Beauty Prayer Live, is this guy a congressman? In the United States of America, if they call someone rep, is that just a representative? What political position does this guy hold? Because he's put out some quality information that is making a lot of people talk. All right. As far as the USAID, your taxes, my beautiful sister Garba Life, and my other beautiful sister Biblical Beauty Prayer Line, both of you ladies are Americans, and your taxes fund the USAID, and that money is used to fund terror organizations around the world. So my question is this guy a congressman? What exactly is this guy?
Here's your food. And here's your Kleenex.
Sorry about my intruders. Yes, he is a representative, a politician. I just wanted to know what political position this guy held, because it's brought out some quality information and a ton of people are talking about it. But thank you for that answer. Thank you. So let's keep going. I'm going to round up this live stream shortly because I don't want it to be too long. And at the end of the conversation, I will drop the link in the comment section. If anybody is interested in having a quick 5-minute dialogue about the topic, we can jump into it. Right? Fast forward 2014, Chibok girls are kidnapped. We have the United States First Lady back then, Michelle Obama. She put it on her Twitter page, and a lot of people were talking about it. All right. She came here with the hashtag bring back our girls. It became big. All right. The entire world was talking about it. And Goodluck Jonathan looked like an absolute incompetent president, which he was to an extent, if I'm being honest. But, part of this was a move by the US government to implement what they wanted in Africa, in Nigeria, right? So we have Michelle Obama with the hashtag bring back our girls, the unfortunate incident that had 200 girls kidnapped from Chibok, northeast Nigeria by Boko Haram, right? Michelle Obama, and some, hey, listen, man, I don't want to sound too controversial. Some people say it's a he. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, listen, it's not me. It's Americans that say that, and I'm just saying what they said. Some people claim that he pushed for the bring back our girls hashtag, which became very popularized. And that painted Goodluck Jonathan in an extremely negative light. Like I said earlier, I don't even like Jonathan. So, but at the same time, I don't agree with any external body, organization, or country interfering with a sovereign country, right? Now that I'm a little bit more politically mature, I see things from a different perspective. All right. So, yes, Jonathan was incompetent, but at the same time, it's just completely wrong for any international organization to interfere with what Nigeria was dealing with. They should have left us to deal with our situation ourselves, as far as good luck, Jonathan. So, eventually, March 2015, Jonathan was booted out of power
The
through
president.
another unfair electoral process of 2015, and he was replaced by Buhari. Before Buhari became the president, he said that if I do not win these elections, baboons will be soaked in blood. What does that mean? Baboons will be soaked in blood, or rather, even baboons will be soaked in blood. I'll tell you what my interpretation of that is. If I do not win the presidency, according to Buhari, my followers that are mostly made up of ignorant, uneducated, unemployable, poverty stricken people will go on a rampage on the street and kill a bunch of people. That's what Buhari meant. But let's listen to Goodluck Jonathan and some of his accusations about the interference by the Barack Obama's administration in America.
The level of interference by the Obama's government was very overwhelming. It's not as if I couldn't have won the election even with that. But if by my own thinking and also the way some other people look at it, they go outside the normal diplomatic relationship, then it should be mentioned. Sending that person to Nigeria at the eve of election, after Obama even issued a statement directing Nigerians to vote for the next chapter, that tells you something. And we should not sweep these things under the carpet. If a foreign country, whether African country or even America or any other country, interferes with our own elections, we should mention it. Immediately the Chibok issue came up, we expect Nigerians to be concerned. How do we get these girls out? Within a couple of days, we saw people going to the US would bring back our girls' placards. How? Why? And of course, the Mrs. Obama received one of those placards. I cannot take responsibility for the abduction. I don't control Boko Haram. They are criminals. But as a president, of course, you know, it's not the president that go to the field. You have security and intelligence officers that do the work. Let me admit that, yes, maybe they do their best, but their best was not good enough for us to recover the girls. That does not mean that I'm trying to remove myself from any blame. Yes, I may not be blamed for the action, but I could be blamed that my security and intelligence system are not strong enough to be able to rescue the girls. The level of interference.
Yeah, thank you so much, my sister. Content Creators Prayer Life Podcast. Click on the like button, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Let's let it expand for more people to see what is going on and understand some dynamics, the underground groundwork playing out behind the scenes, and why we remain at the bottom of the food chain. These are some of the reasons. I appreciate you for that, content creators. My sister Garba Life says, "Oh God, Jonathan, go and sleep." Yes, Jonathan needs to go to bed. He was absolutely incompetent. But like I said, the fact that he was incompetent doesn't negate the fact that Boko Haram was sponsored, funded by international organizations, because there is no way those guys could afford what they had. Number two, it's completely unethical and illegal for the US, a sovereign state, to be meddling with the electoral process of Nigeria, back then a sovereign state. In my opinion, right now, it's not even an opinion. Nigeria is a failed state today, 2025. Okay. But I'm showing you how we got to where we are. All right. If you're looking for the epitome, a perfect entity that meets all the characteristics of a failed state, just look at Nigeria. But it's still being propped up as an entity that is viable, that is alive. And we're going to see how long that works, the propping up. You can't have a country where the people, vast majority of the people, don't benefit from that country. The few people that are the politicians, they use extreme violence to control the masses when the masses want to revolt, but it's still not an excuse. The masses still need to revolt. They use extreme violence to crush the people when they want their voices to be heard. So they continue to use the name of that country to collect loans, aids, grants, and all this fake financial help from any organization willing to give that money, to the detriment of the people, to creating a situation where the people don't have the capacity or the ability to utilize their natural resources for their development and growth, and where the people, vast majority, will remain in perpetual poverty. That's what Nigeria has done. And not only has Nigeria kept the people poor, it also has what we call completely failed infrastructure, lack of access to basic amenities, lack of development of the human development index. Most of the people that go to school, they are just simply trying to survive. And those that don't go to school, that are unemployable, they are also trying to survive. So we have a case where, apart from the absolute destruction of everything that makes a human being's life decent, then they've sowed seeds of discord multiple times, in which people are constantly fighting about, oh, my tribe is better than yours, your tribe is better than mine. Oh, the entire problem in this country, we have to blame it on this particular tribe. Oh, the Christians are evil. Oh, the Muslims are evil. So we have an absolute chaos playing out with completely confused people going round and round aimlessly in an infinite loop. That is Nigeria, a failed country. But let's go back to the timeline and see what happened after Goodluck Jonathan and his clueless self got booted out by the illegal interference of the US government. We saw what Michelle Obama, Barack Obama did. They forced. Now, check this out, guys. Nigeria pretty much went from frying pan to fire. Remember, we had an absolutely incompetent Goodluck Jonathan. Clueless, had no clue what he was doing, very useless. Then they replaced Barack Obama and the Democrats of the US. They used their influence. We saw John Kerry go to Nigeria a day before the elections. Election eve, you have a US secretary, top politician visiting Nigeria, talking with the opposition. Not like the opposition are good or the incumbents are good. Then they replaced the clueless guy with an absolute, what's the word? An absolute reckless, uneducated, unemployable human being, Buhari. You replace Goodluck Jonathan, a clueless guy, with Buhari, a lifeless. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. It's a wrap. This was how these guys killed Nigeria, bro. Look at Joe Biden smiling. Look at Buhari feeling like a boss. Oh, I'm hanging around the US president and the vice president. Let me say it in Buhari's accent, because Buhari is a complete illiterate. Oh, I'm hanging with the president of USA, United States, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. Bro, this guy's killed us, man. They gave us Buhari after Jonathan. Forced. Oh my goodness. You see this guy in the blue agbada? This is called an agbada. This attire, yeah, that you find Nigerian politicians mostly, or the low self-esteem Nigerians that want to feel like they are big people. Oh, I'm so big, I'm so rich. I need to put on this agbada so I look big and rich to the world. That's what they do. This guy is literally linked to Boko Haram. He was the governor of a Nigerian state when this picture was taken. Today, he is the vice president of Nigeria. Kabiru Sokoto, remember earlier in the live stream, I was talking about the bomb blasts executed by Boko Haram in Abuja, Jos, and some other places. 37 people lost their lives in Abuja alone, December 25, 2011. A guy was eventually arrested as a Boko Haram member. He goes by the name Kabiru Sokoto. Kabiru Sokoto was somehow taken out of the police custody and hidden for about 9 months in the, guess where? The private property of this guy in the blue agbada. This guy is now the vice president of Nigeria. So do you see how, are you connecting the dots, people? A Boko Haram member that was linked to the bomb blasts of December 25, 2011 was taken out of the custody of the police and found in a private property of this guy that took the picture with Barack Obama. And today, this same guy is the vice president of Nigeria. It's a wrap, people. Complete joke, I tell you. All these Nigerian guys smiling because they have the opportunity to take a picture with the US president in the Oval Office. All criminals. You see, in Nigeria, in order for you to get promoted in your political career, you have to be a violent criminal. If you don't, you're not going to get any promotions. You have to be an absolute thug, a killer. You have to have some of the coldest hearts out of men to get promoted to that level. Anyways, I digress. You have Buhari with Barack Obama. The US government is happy. Yes, we finally installed our puppet in one of the most, potentially viable African countries. This was way back in 2015. Everybody's happy. Yes, Buhari is happy. I finally became the president. It's been my lifelong dream, not because I have anything to offer, but because it's a show of class. I'm a boss. I have a country that I can control. And he did exactly that. Once Buhari became the president, boy, oh boy, this guy, an absolute lawless criminal, spent 4 months in London. Oh, but you're the president of another country. Why are you spending 4 months in London, England? Oh, because I have a medical issue and I don't trust Nigerian hospitals, so I have to use the hospital in London, England. What? As the president of a country, aren't you supposed to focus on repairing the healthcare infrastructure of your country? No, that's not how it works with these guys. I would spend 4 months in London and there is nothing you can do about it. And if you complain and protest about it, you're going to get arrested and thrown in prison. And if nobody is watching, you will permanently disappear. That was Buhari's modus operandi. And Barack Obama was smiling. He loved that. He wanted the Nigerian people to be oppressed and crushed and violated by this thug. And yes, Buhari did it. Between 2015 and 2023, Oh boy, this guy completely destroyed the social fabric. I'm talking about the cohesion between different ethnic groups of the country. Buhari made sure that he destroyed it. Absolutely sowed a seed of discord. These days, just go on the Nigerian social media space. Vast majority of the time, if these guys are not talking about, oh, Afrobeat music is the best. Oh, Wizkid, Davido, Burna Boy. Oh, they're so great. They won the Grammy Awards. They're the best in the world. If they're not talking about that, they're talking about, oh, the English Premier League. Oh, Arsenal is going to beat Man U. Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool. I'm talking about British soccer clubs. That's what they talk about if they are not talking about Afrobeat. And if they're not talking about Afrobeat or soccer, guess what they're talking about? They are trying to destroy themselves. Oh, your ethnic group, the Igbos are they are traitors. Oh, the Yorubas they are backstabbers. The Yorubas are evil. They are skull miners. Oh, the Fulanis are terrorists. That's all they do all day, every day. So they've made us self-destructive as a people. I don't know why this is funny, but it's actually funny. My sister, hey, I'm not lying though. I'm just being honest with you. If you have some time, go check out the Nigerian social media spaces. You will be able to gauge the mindset of the people. And I'll tell you what, vast majority of Nigerians are not on social media because unfortunately, most of us are poor. So we don't even have access to that. But for those that have access to social media, that are a little bit educated, that's what they spend their time doing. They are either talking about English football, English soccer, talking about Afrobeat music and bragging about how they are the best, or they are arguing about ethnic groups. The Yorubas are the worst, the Igbos are the worst, the Hausas are the worst, etc. That's all what we do every day on social media. And it's a shame. And Barack Obama is smiling. Buhari is supposed to be in jail if this was a fair world. Today, he's a retired former president, completely destroyed the country, the economy gone to shit, completely destroyed the security infrastructure, and then finally destroyed the cohesion amongst various ethnic groups. This started with US interference using USAID in 1960. Fast forward 2015, 55 years later, still getting the same USAID, but has completely destroyed the country. Let's move on. Now we are headed towards the end of the live stream, just so you know. And I appreciate you guys for sticking around. You know, smash that like button, share the video if you like this type of content. And, you know, we're going to keep on exposing some of these issues that we have, right? Let me quickly show you guys what that representative from the US politician group, whatever, Rep Scott Perry, what he had to say once again about how the USAID directly funded Boko Haram.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think $7 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram.
Boko Haram, that's what I'm concerned about in this case. Boko Haram. So to my American citizens in the comment section, how do you feel about your tax money funding the destruction of, unfortunately, the destruction of some other people in some other parts of the world? How do you guys feel about that? Anyways, I'm rounding up this conversation right now. Absolutely right now. And I appreciate you for joining me in the conversation. Let me put a link in the chat if you're interested in having a quick dialogue. It has to be related to this conversation, this topic, okay? We could do a quick 5-minute conversation and then round it up. So the link is in the comment section if you're interested. I see my sisters there just having a quick chat, Thank you, Garba Live. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll keep up the good work. This is the African Wahala. We talk about, African issues affecting people of African descent all over the world. Why we still remain at the bottom of the food chain. I know that hurts a lot of people's feelings when it's said, but in my opinion, the first way to address a disease that you have is to acknowledge that it exists. Then you can tell yourself the truth. This is where I am. I am at the bottom of the food chain. I'm poor, broke, I have nothing. People don't respect me. But why is that the case? One of the reasons why they don't respect us, unfortunately, is when you have African leaders, palm in hand, begging, begging for money for 55 years. Oh, USAID, can you please give us money? You keep on begging for money for 55 years, but your country gets poorer and poorer. Is that not enough enough evidence that you need to change what you're doing? But these guys don't care. They will just rather get into power, have vast majority of the people remain extremely poor and confused, and then life goes on. Steal billions, buy property in the same United States of America and England, send their kids to those countries to go study, to get quality education, while the vast majority of the people in Nigeria, in many African countries, remain extremely poor. It's a mess. It's a mess, but it is what it is. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. Yes, my sisters here are sharing links. Please make sure you subscribe to my sister, Biblical Beauty Prayer Live. Make sure you subscribe. Yeah, I know that was auto text or something. She's probably having a conversation with Garba Life. Yes, auto type. Garba Life, yeah. Yes. And if you want to have that conversation, click on the link. It's right here in the chat. Otherwise, I'll round up this conversation in 1 minute. I appreciate you guys. Stingy Blue, my brother. Oh my God, Stingy Blue. I just finished a great show, brother. I was explaining just for you, brother. Let me play this clip. It's about 10 seconds long. We have this representative of the United States. I'm not sure what level of politician he is, if he's a congressman or senator or whatever. But he had this to say about the USAID.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan.
You see, me and my brother Stingy Blue, we always have conversations behind the scene, all right? And we both understand that, yes, the Donald Trump's administration, 2.0 Donald Trump, in my opinion, is garbage, in my opinion. And I understand some of you guys love Trump. I get it, okay? I get it. In my opinion, he's garbage. But at the same time, some good things can come out of garbage. That's why you find homeless people digging their hands into the dumpsters, trying to see if there is something useful that they can grab from the dumpster, because you can get some quality from garbage once in a while. So as garbage as Donald Trump is, and I understand completely if you disagree with me, all right, he has exposed how the USAID, which stands for the United States, is a organization. I'm going to give you guys the correct acronym now, what that actually means. Okay, let me give you guys what it means. I don't want to sound, uneducated on this. But we're all learning together, right? So it is what it is. The USAID stands for, according to your website, it says United States Agency for International Development. That's what it stands for. And the USAID exists to push for the interest of the United States of America, even if it's to the detriment of the people that it pushes it to. So they started a relationship with Nigeria in 1960, according to their website. So it's been going on for 65 years. And then with the relationship between the United States, AID, and Nigeria for 65 years, Nigeria only got worse and worse and worse. And then the rep member, Scott Perry, accusing the USAID of funding Boko Haram now made sense. And we did a thorough analysis in this live stream, connecting the dots as to how come a group of people in 2009 that are extremely poor, have no education, they have no proper structure about them. There is nothing going good for them. And it's not their fault, like I said. It's as a result of the mismanagement of their government. That's why these people went on a rampage in 2009 after their leader, Mohammed Yusuf, was killed. They went on a rampage, started claiming, oh, we are so angry, you can't just kill our leader. Their leader was killed illegally by the Nigerian police because the Nigerian police does a lot of illegal stuff. And then these people, fast forward 2 years later, they've started attacking international institutions like the United Nations. They've started attacking multiple churches at the same time using suicide bombs. They have vehicles that carry artillery. I'm talking about, expensive stuff. How do poor people that are extremely poverty stricken, they have no education, they have no international connection, how come they have machine guns and vehicles that can carry machine guns all of a sudden? And then fast forward 2014, how come these people have grown so much that they have the capacity to kidnap 200 girls from Chibok? It's because there is some external funding. And that's where the USAID comes into play. And then fast forward, we also saw how the US government interfered with the Nigerian elections in 2015, pushing in Buhari to take over from Jonathan. Both guys are completely useless, both Buhari and Jonathan. Yes, Jonathan has some more human feeling. He's not as heartless and cold-hearted as Buhari, because Buhari was absolutely just a straight-up terrorist, a pure Boko Haram himself, okay? Buhari takes over Nigeria for 8 years. After 8 years, Nigeria's economy crashes from largest economy in Africa to number 3, shrinking by half the size. The GDP shrunk from like $400 billion to $200 billion in 8 years. Also, Nigeria became the poverty capital of the world, overtaking India. Let me explain what that means. If you're looking for people living in extreme poverty, living on less than $1 a day, India always had the number 1 spot in the world. And it's understandable. Yes, there's a lot of poverty in India and it has a huge population. But how come a smaller country like Nigeria takes over from India for 6 years in a row after Buhari got into power? Buhari that was pushed in by the US government, another foreign interference. I also forgot to mention that in 2009, the US government had approached Omar Yaradua, telling Yaradua that, hey, listen, we want to have a military base in Nigeria. And Yaradua said, no, we're not going to let you have that. And then fast forward, Boko Haram began. A couple of months later, Yaradua died. Few months after that, Boko Haram came into existence. Fast forward, Boko Haram becomes so big, kidnapping 200 people, having high-class sophisticated weapons, having weapons that could bring down choppers. Where did the funding come from? From external organizations. That's where the USAID comes into play. But let me just wrap up this conversation. I appreciate you guys for joining me. Thank you so much. Stingy Blue, my brother, says the problem with the USAID for Africa and the rest of the world is that it's a spy organization masquerading as a development agency. Facts. These cuts not only hurt foreign nations and their people who depend on the aid, but American farmers who grow the food that USAID buys no longer have this source of income. Everyone is hurt by Trump. Oh, yeah. I absolutely don't like Trump personally. I don't like that guy, Trump. The guy is just a hypocrite. Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on the live stream. I encourage you to go back to the beginning if you have some time. Watch it from the beginning. I actually did a thorough job breaking this out. And let me know in the comment section what you thought about the live stream. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Biblical Beauty Prayer Line. Thank you, Garba Life. Thank you, Stingy Blue. Peace and blessings. And don't forget to subscribe, click on the like button, share the content if you like it. Peace.